You and Sir Alex, how did you end up with him at United?
That's an interesting story as well, because when I did my coaching courses and badges in Holland, I felt at some point a door would have been shut. So I had to divert to England and to also do my coaching courses in England. And I did that over a number of years, but at that time I was already working in Qatar. And the national under-17 coach at that time was Dave Mackay, the legendary Dave Mackay.
Yeah.
The Spurs player.
Yeah.
Scottish international, fantastic guy. And I got to know him, I got to work with him, etc., etc. And through my time spending in England on the courses, I got to know Dave Richardson as well, who was very keen on my messaging and the way how I was coaching. He wanted to bring me into England, and he sort of tried to open doors, but it never really materialised. Until he rang me one day and he said, Rene, I know you're coming over to England, and Les Kershaw from Manchester United, the then academy manager, would like to speak to you. Is that possible? Yeah, no problem. And I prepared my preparation and all this and that and the other. And so eventually I told Dave about that. I met Les, and I didn't make much out of it because I stayed at Dave at the time when I was in England. And I went back to Qatar because I was a manager of Al Sadd at the time. And that was about September. But in October, Dave rang me. And he said, hi, Rene, it's Dave here. Has Sir Alex Ferguson rang you? And I started laughing because he was always coming up with jokes. He says, no, I've just hung up to Prince Charles at the time. So he was laughing, and he said, no. He says, I've just rang him. He said, Dave, have you checked the number, because Qatar has added an extra 5. Oh, well, that must be it. Okay, I'll check it. 10 minutes later, Sir Alex Ferguson rang me. Hello, Rene, it's Sir Alex here. So we had a chat over the phone, which was just unreal, for about 20 minutes. And we decided that I was at a break, was coming to England to have a chat, because he said that Dave Mackay spoke to him about me, and he recommended me as a coach and, you know, as a person. And he says he would love to meet me. And that is how I first got to know him.
Brilliant. And then how did you become essentially first team coach? How did you work closer to Sir Alex in time?
Yeah, so when I started, when I started in that year in 2001, I was the skills development coach, which I thought was a great title, and it emphasised everything why they brought me in. So I did all that, but over time, I got to convince Sir Alex that there was still marginal improvement to be made in first team players as well. And I started to do some individual work with Diego Forlan. You know, when he came to the club, then Ruud van Nistelrooy joined in. I did some work with Ryan Giggs, etc. And it sort of propelled into that. Then I got the opportunity to, because Ricky Sriraja went to Bolton as an assistant, so there was a gap there. And I asked Sir Alex Ferguson. I actually wrote a letter and slid it under the door. That was the first time I was earlier on Carrington than Sir Alex himself. Slipped the letter under the door.
You wrote my letter?
And yeah, I did. And say basically, you know, this job coming up with the reserves, and why would we look outside when the solution is within here? It says I would love to take it, because I would love to show you how all that technical development is implemented in a team scenario. So now I was working with the reserves with boys like Jared Piqué, Johnny Evans, etc., all those players, and it worked out really, really well. And then obviously after that year, which was great because we won the treble. And in the summer, I suddenly got called in by Sir Alex Ferguson at the end of the season saying, Brøndby has knocked on the door, you know, and I know some people there, and I think you should talk to them. I know you've been a manager in Qatar and, you know, etc. So, which I did. And then you got a short spell in Brøndby that didn't work out. And then I came back. And in that meantime, he's spoken to quite a lot of senior players who all said, listen, if you got a chance, bring him back to the first team setup, because we can all benefit from it. And that is how I ended up as the first team coach. Well, when Carlos Queiroz left, eventually, I then ended up as the first team coach.
And that was that. As I said earlier on in the show, you then took training sessions, right? And all the methods were yours. All the drills were yours, right? And the players bought into those drills as Sir Alex observed this relationship that you continue to build and build and build with these top players, like Rooney, like Ronaldo.
Yeah, but it was actually really easy for me, Jim, because one day when Sir Alex Ferguson made a decision to make Mick Phelan the assistant manager and me first team coach, we had a really good chat in his office. And he had a flip chart there, written things on it. And he basically explained me, very clear the outline of how we wanted Man United to play. In terms of defensive setup, in terms of what possession meant to him, and in terms of the attacking side. And that was the most interesting bit. He said, when I close my eyes and I see Manchester United play and attack, I want to see them attack with pace, power, penetration, and unpredictability. And I want you to instill these ingredients every single day in training, no matter what you do, when it's a finishing session, a condition game, a small-sided game. And those, to me, those 3 flip charts were my sort of navigation system to do all those sessions. I've never really discussed any of the sessions before with him. He just was there, and and if it would have been right, he would have probably said to me, listen, Rene, can you do this, can you do that? But that was never the case.
I mean, how did you honestly feel, Rene, when he demonstrated clearly that trust in you? There it is, it's yours, get on with it.
Yeah, well, it's empowerment, and I think it's one of the biggest qualities that Sir Alex Ferguson had, at least in the last 6 years that I was working with him. He was so good at delegating. And delegating is a word that a lot of people use, but there's only few that can do it, because it's all based on trust.
Yeah.
And he always used to say, listen, if I don't trust you, I might as well do it myself. But I know how intense it is to come up every day again to make the sessions world class, and it takes a lot of energy. And if you take that away from him, it gave him a lot of space to look after other things.